Hi everybody, happy Thursday. We are gonna get started on our art history lesson. I wanted to start each lesson now with a prayer, so we're gonna do that first. So go ahead and fold your hands and close your eyes, and you can repeat it after me. Dear Jesus, thank you for allowing us to learn together. Thank you for the ability to create and make things that remind us of you. Amen. All right, friends, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. So we're gonna go through our flashcards as always, but there are a couple new words in there to kind of trick you. So let's go ahead and get started. What is that one? Glue, good job. And that? A crayon, you are right. Paint, excellent. And a marker, good job. This one's kind of like crayons and chalk mixed. Pastels, yes, yes. All right, and then this is where we store all of our art. It's called a portfolio. We don't want to confuse that with the word portrait. That's what we did last week. That's a picture of you or someone else. Okay, and sculpture, good. An easel. And this one is something we use outside. Chalk, excellent. This one's kind of like Play-Doh, but it's got a different name. Clay. All right. This one is a kind of a tricky one. It's pen and what's the other part? What's in a pen? Ink. Good, good. All right. And what are people called when they paint? They're called artists. You are right. And then we use that one to paint. Yep, a paintbrush. We use that one to write or draw. A pencil. This one is a paint. You remember the second word? Palette. Good, good. All right, and this one was our trickiest one. It's called a color wheel, and it's got 3 parts, and the first part is primary, good, and the second part is secondary, and then the third part has a really long name, it's kind of hard to say, tertiary. All right, and then we'll get into these new words. Okay. So this one's kind of an easy one because we use these all the time to make necklaces and bracelets at school. What is that? Beads. Good, good. Okay, and then we also use these. We cut them up and we use them for artwork, and mom and dad probably get them in the mail at home. Otherwise, we bring them into school for you to cut up. They're magazines. And then this one, what does that look like to you, do you think? If you have a mommy or a daddy who sew anything, you might see this at home. This is fabric. We use it to make blankets and clothing and all sorts of stuff. But when we use it in art, and you can use it in art, it's got a different name. It's called a textile. So can you say that with me? Textile. Good. And then this one, I don't know that you've ever seen it. We're going to talk about it today because it applies to the artist we're focused on. So this one is called spray paint. So it comes in a can and you shake it up, and then at the top you would push down on this thing up here and paint would spray out of that side. Okay? And so our artist that we're focused on this week who used spray paint is Jean-Michele Basquiat. So again, another French name, like when we talked about Henri Matisse and Claude Monet, right? Those are kind of hard for us to say. This one is Jean-Michele Basquiat. And technically the French pronunciation would be Basquiat, but Let's just add the T on, okay? So the one thing that I really like about Jean-Michele is that he had made some comments about children artists. And I thought that that was a really neat thing that he thought about children as artists, because you all are artists. So, and he loved doing artwork from the time he was very young. So one of his quotes that he said is that, "I like kids' work more than work by real artists any day." So he thought that children, so people like you who did art, could be more talented or more impressive than someone who had been doing art for like 30 years or someone who was considered a real artist. So I feel like that's kind of special. This is a picture of Jean-Michele Basquiat. So you'll see he's got kind of some wild hair, and then down here he's got a little crown, and that's something that we're going to see a lot of in his artwork. But we are going to go ahead and read a book called Radiant Child, and it is the story of Jean-Michele's life. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Somewhere in Brooklyn, between hearts that thump, double Dutch and hopscotch, and salty mouths that slurp sweet ice, a little boy dreams of being a famous artist. In his house, you can tell a serious artist dwells, as he sits at a table with pencils scattered everywhere. Jean-Michele draws from morning until night with a serious face amid a storm of papers. He refuses to sleep until he has created a masterpiece. Do you see all of this artwork he's been working on? At night, images enchant Jean-Michele's mind, and he wakes from his dreams to add one more line. His drawings are not neat or clean, nor does he color inside the lines. They are sloppy, ugly, and sometimes weird, but somehow still beautiful. Do you see that? He's got like a lot of scribbly lines in there. His art comes from his mother, Mathilde, a Puerto Rican woman who designs and sews, cooks and cleans, and makes the house look like a stylish magazine. But most important, she lies on the floor and draws with Jean-Michele on his father's old work papers. All right, we do art with our parents. From her, he learns that art is not only in the poetry books she reads to him or in the theaters and museums they visit. Art is the street games of little children, in our style and the words that we speak. It is how the messy patchwork of the city creates new meaning for ordinary things. While visiting the museum, they look at his favorite works of art, reading the story behind each artist, reading the story behind each work. This is how Jean-Michele learns what it means to be a famous artist, right? And we do that every week in art history. We go through artists and talk about their works. Back at home, he creates art on the floor as his father, Gerard, plays jazz records. Mama Mathilde cooks arroz con pollo, which that's Spanish for rice with chicken, and calls Jean-Michele mi amor, which means my love. The energy and life of the city can be felt in each line of his drawings. As time goes by, Jean-Michele learns that his art has a healing power. After a car accident, he is scared and confused, and Mathilde gives him a book to calm his fears. It is filled with pictures of bones, skulls, and other body parts, and Jean-Michele draws from it until he knows it all by heart, and he is no longer afraid. Back at home, Jean-Michele's body heals, but his heart breaks. His mother's mind is not well, and the family breaks. She no longer lies on the floor and draws with Jean-Michele, but sits by the window, singing only to birds. Jean-Michele is confused and filled with a terrible blues when Mathilde can no longer live at home. She was sick, so she had to go live somewhere else. He tries drawing the terrible out of his blues, but things are not the same. As Jean-Michele grows older, he visits his mother when he can, always bringing his artwork to show, telling her that one day it will be in a museum when I am a famous artist. A teenager now, Jean-Michele decides, Papa, I will be very, very famous one day. With a sly look, a twinkle in his eye, Jean-Michele leaves Brooklyn for New York City, the Lower East Side, a concrete jungle where only the tough survive. During the day, dressed in a green jumpsuit splattered with paint, Jean-Michele stays with friends, sleeping on couches and floors, leaving a barrage of collages and poem-filled papers everywhere he goes. You see some of those artworks? He likes to write words in all of his pieces of art. At night, Jean-Michele spray paints the walls downtown with poems and drawings that catch the eye of artists, gallery goers, and passers-by. Under his art, he signs the name Samu instead of Jean-Michele. Everybody wants to know, who is Samu? Samu moves from street corners to art gallery walls with powerful color composition and line, collaging and painting on anything he can find. His art is still not neat or clean, and definitely not inside the lines, but somehow still beautiful. With his magical charm, Jean-Michele draws a crowd, but when it's time to work, he prefers to be alone with the radio and TV on full blast. Now, in expensive suits splattered with paint, he flips through stacks of magazines and open books and paints into the night, and sometimes for days at a time, while sounds and images jump into his head. Jean-Michele, an artist among artists, never doubts one line, creating from a soundtrack that is all his own. People describe him as radiant, wild, a genius child. But in his heart he is king, so he draws crowns for himself and others he admires. So see, that's where that crown comes in, because he thinks he's a king, and so are the other people that he respects. A grown man now, with the art world in his hands, Jean-Michele still visits his mother when he can. And at most important shows, above all the critics, fans, and artists he admires, the place of honor is his mother's, a queen on a throne. He is now a famous artist. Okay, and that's the end of that. So Jean-Michele worked with spray paint, and he did something called graffiti, which we don't do because graffiti means that you're painting outside where someone doesn't want you to paint. But what I'm gonna have you guys do this week is I'm gonna have you do some fake graffiti. So outside on your sidewalks, I want you to use chalk and draw all over, and I want you to include words. So I'd like you to work on letters, and you can include your name, or you could make up a name. And that could be what we call your tag if you wanted. You could make up a name and sign that name. So I'm gonna have you guys work on that. So I'd like you to work outside, make some chalk drawings. Jean-Michele's work was very abstract, but you guys are great at that kind of stuff because at this age right now, you just draw whatever pops in your head. And that's fantastic. So I'm gonna have you guys do that outside with your parents, and then make sure you're getting some letters in there too. And if you wanna draw a crown, go ahead. If that's what you wanna do, you wanna copy that crown, go ahead. If you'd rather do something that's special to you, you could draw a dinosaur or a bear or a rainbow, whatever you want. Okay, but make sure you include that in your picture because that's gonna kind of be a symbol in this artwork for you, okay? All right, thank you guys for coming and listening. I will see you again next week on Monday with live story time, and then again on Thursday with another art history lesson. I miss you guys. Have a good weekend. Bye.